Hello, Disobey. Nice to be here. There's so many of you. So many good presentations. The bar is set high, so it is easy to go under that bar. So let's get going. My name is Jarkko Vesiluoma. I'm working as a principal offensive security lead at Elisa. I'm developing the offensive capabilities of Elisa and also conducting all sorts of red team exercises, purple team exercises, penetration testing and whatnot, something to offensive security. That's my field. I'm also a white hat hacker, bug bounty hunter, and doing all kind of security research, mainly last time doing with passwords, and maybe you have heard some of my password adventures or read it from the news. I'm also a member of Team ROT, one of the missing members. Usually some person always forgets me. Where are you, Iiro? Also, I'm a member of Hayosec founder. Okay, that's enough about me. Let's get going. And what is this presentation about? So this is pretty much story-style presentation about a vulnerability I found on last September. And this is an overview of that vulnerability in that Acme Corps security and how I managed to breach that security. And some technical details are left out of this presentation because I don't want to reveal too much, and the company's name is of course censored, and those people who know this company that this vulnerability is about, I ask you kindly to not reveal that company because that is a private bug bounty program. I would really much want to tell that company because their actions are extremely good and the bug bounty program is very good. So, in September, I asked from this company's triage guy that is there some assets or certain types of vulnerabilities that they are very interested about. And I got a vague answer that everything is interesting. They are interested about any vulnerability that is affecting them. So I went on and started to hack that company and did some research. And the method I use usually is that I use my own tool called AutoHackerman. It's a tool with web interface. It's made with PHP, just to giggles. And the backend is Python and open source software. It does all sorts of port scanning, automated vulnerability discovery, content discovery, server-side request forgery testing, and so on. So when those tests went on, it automatically found one server-side request forgery pingback from this weird domain API service.acme.corp domain. And when I researched this vulnerability, you probably can see the small text on the bottom side of the slide, but there is some hashes and all sorts of information that I can trace back to certain payloads from my automation. So I investigated that, and I wasn't able to reproduce it, but I went on and checked what is this IP address where this domain is pointing. And after that, I found out it is pointing to multiple IP addresses, one IP address that were many other domains pointing from that company. And the most interesting one was that node1.acmedev.corp domain. So I proceeded to set up a wildcard domain for that acmedev.corp. And also, I set up an Apache web server for that domain as well, a wildcard server, which accepted all the information from coming to that domain, and also set up the Apache web server so that it records debug information, all post requests, all headers, and so on. So this was the starting point. I checked that where that domain was pointing, what IP address, and as you can see, the IP address and the domain name is masked and faked on this instance. So that was the starting point. I found out that API service 1.acme.corp was pointing to 1, 2, 3, 4 IP address, and passive domain history revealed that several other domains have been pointing on that IP address as well. And maybe you can see, but on the bottom one, there is node1.acmedev.corp. And when I researched that, it immediately got my attention. It wasn't registered. It was free, expired a few weeks back. And now, because I had the Apache web server and DNS wildcard server, I discovered that there is multiple subdomains being requested from this domain. And the most interesting one was acme/rancher.acmedev.corp and domain. There were several other ones, including some regarding some forums, development, testing sites, and so on. But the acme/rancher.acmedev.corp was very interesting in my point of view, because there was bearer tokens included in the requests back to my web server, which revealed that they are from Kubernetes fleet agent, or it is a Rancher fleet agent. There were also some other interesting headers, some, for example, basic HTTP authentication headers, which I, of course, got the username and password as well, but I wasn't sure where they belong. So that bearer token was very interesting. And at this point, I reported the vulnerability and finding to Acme Corp Incorporated, and they said, this is some forgotten development site. You can't go anywhere from here. It was challenge to escalate, and challenge accepted. So, time went by, I researched it, and made hypothesis. I assumed that once the one node has been registered to certain Rancher server, it doesn't anymore check, the node doesn't check if the Rancher server changes, or if the server where it tries to connect changes and what kind of software there is and so on. I made also a hypothesis that I can then change the workloads given by the Rancher to the nodes. So I could issue a commands to the workloads YAML files, so I could run my own containers inside the target system. Problem was that the Rancher containers didn't like the work. There was several problems with them, and I hadn't been using Rancher at all, so it was completely new. I had to learn how it works. And I spent very much time debugging some issues and learning Kubernetes and Rancher. And this was fun thing to do and also painful. At this point, I already said to my wife that I just leave it and report it as is. And I'm not so keen to dig this up, and so this will take a lot of time. So my wife said to try harder. I wonder where she has heard that one. So time went by. I think it's about a week later, the company asked me that is everything okay, they haven't heard about me, and do I need pizza, am I hungry, have I done this bug bounty more? And eventually, I managed to get the Orpaint Rancher system agent connecting to a new server. So I had a Rancher server with my own lab system where Rancher system agent was running. I managed to, and when I dropped the server away, or deleted, reset that server, I set up a new server in that places, and now the Orpaint Rancher agent connected back to the now new Rancher server. So I redirected requests to custom Python scripts I made that were modifying the URLs, bearer tokens, and requests on the fly. And some were going as is to the Rancher server, and some were modified on the fly. So eventually, I got shell commands through Rancher system agent and got a reverse shell. So I was, yes, this works. But against the real targets, this didn't work. So I debugged some more, did some more debugging, and nothing seemed to work. I was completely lost at why this doesn't work. There was a lot of frustration. My wife said more than a few times more that try harder. I was almost giving this up, but then I noticed that I have gotten an RCE from another software. It wasn't Rancher system agent, it was Rancher fleet agent that was connecting back to me. So back to work. I finally noticed that and did some more debugging and wondered what is wrong, why this doesn't work. I was completely lost at this point, but sometime at this point I decided to throw everything to trash. I deleted all my lab systems, all my virtual servers, and I didn't even look anymore to my nodes and built the Kubernetes Rancher system from the ground up. I installed plain Linux and the software on top of that. So I got it working. But I didn't use AI at this point anymore. I had used AI to learn, quickly learn from Kubernetes and Rancher systems. And I thought that the AI gives me good instruction how to set up, and it seemed that it will work. But after a while, I noticed that the AI just gave me correct instructions, but they were for newer installation or older installation, and there was some instruction mixed, so it didn't work very well. So no AI anymore at this point. So I proceeded to make a repository to GitHub and set up a YAML file there that was used as a Rancher base. That YAML file contains instructions how to run the container, what container should be run, and so on. So I set up that GitHub URL repository to the Rancher server. I now control it on my own lab server, and also made a new container to Docker Hub. And modified the Python scripts a bit, so the URLs and bearer tokens were modified again on the fly. So that was a pretty tricky part. I had to unpack the base 64 encoded strings from the bearer token and from the requests that the nodes were making, and then there were some other things that I had to unpack as well, and then build the whole YAML response back to the nodes. So the lab nodes I had were now fetching payloads, execute them, and node requests that were modified on the fly. And my lab nodes started to accept new jobs. So they run my containers. And this happened against the real nodes. There is something good from my point of view in this screen. Those of you closest to this one may see it. So I could now access the company's internal networks. I was in a development environment, so I also could look another services at that point that were accessible from this container. And I have to note that at this point and all the time doing this, I was always communicating with the company's triage team. It was extremely good communication. And they were very happy that I got on this far, but they did not believe yet that I can access somewhere else, that I can have access to somewhere else. So I managed to prove them that I have access to their production environment as well from the container. And that was verified, for example, from the Nmap scans against the internal networks. And I could also mount the host root disk as a root user inside this container. So I had root access to the whole server that was running the containers. At this point, I could have modified the binaries from that host. So it was pretty fun at this point. This was due to weak security context for the bots. They were running on too high privileges. And since I had the full write access to the host server, I could also make modifications on there, just enumerated what kind of files, what kind of usernames, password, API calls, and so on there could be. At this point, I got a request to stop the testing. No wonder. I was very deep inside this company's internal networks, and mainly this was due to me being a reliable tester, reliable hacker that knew the person knew me. So in case I would have been some random guy, I wouldn't think this would work at all. Company would have said, stop testing way before. So after this, I immediately got the bounty. $10,001. And now you may wonder, why that $1? And this is the funny thing. Immediately when we discussed this and I got information that I get the max bounty, I asked that, can I get a $1 more? They were a bit confused. Why? I said that we have this competition between every hacker and every now and then, and some guys have also gotten $10,000 bounty from you, but if you give me $1 more bounty, I can flex to my friend Jarmo Puttonen that I have more bounty than him. And they were, okay, yes. So, this is the reason for the $1 extra bounty. And I think I said that I can pay that myself if you don't want to pay that. So, we have gone a bit faster than I thought, but time to start to wrap up things. So first there were that initial discovery of that domain, then hypothesis, then I installed the home lab, then I did a lot of debugging and reset the system, did more debugging and enumerate the systems and got bounty. So at that last comment was from that company's SOC, which has had noticed my doings. I wasn't trying to be silent in any way. Maybe try to be more noisy, cause more noise than be silent to test that security for that company as well in that perspective. So I got information that there has been some 900 alerts made by me. So here's the timeline, overall timeline. And I want to point at this point that it isn't just the bug bounties or security research and so on, it isn't just that you find a vulnerability, throw in exploit, get a bounty, and this is usually the case when we see someone tweeting, or should we say shitting to X or something? Information that they have gotten a lot of bounty from somewhere. So the initial discovery, I made the domain and made a wildcard domain on my servers, got callbacks, found out that there were tokens, and immediately after that I made the report to the program. And pretty quickly I got the remote code execution from the Rancher system agent, which was wrong software. And as you can see, there are also almost a week gone by from that point of from that start. And well, actually, there's 2 weeks already gone time when I got a remote code execution from my own servers. And I have to note that I did my normal daytime work at Elisa. I had some private things I had to attend, so I hadn't time to do this 24/7. And a little bit, 2 weeks gone by, so I noticed that there is a fleet agent and not Rancher system agent, and started to go through that vulnerability and finding what kind of things that could bring me. So in total, about 2.5 weeks I used it to do this kind of research. This is not the most extensive research I have done. Sometimes I have made bug bounty, or I have hunted bugs from a site that contains only login screen. And this was about a year ago. I also just thought that, okay, I will use 1 month to see what kind of vulnerabilities I can find from this one site. And the starting point was that only login screen. And there was that index.html and the post request to some other endpoint. I used 1 month to do all sorts of content discovery and eventually found remote code execution also on that site. So what I'm trying to say is that persistence is the key. You shouldn't drop your hacking attempts if you don't succeed. Believe in yourself. And if you get stuck, it's not a bad thing to start from scratch. Just delete everything you have. So not everything you have, but everything you have on this hacking attempt. So you can start all the way from scratch and build everything, for example, your lab environment and so on. You may notice something different at that point and do things differently, and you may succeed. But the important thing is also to build, if possible, build a lab environment which you can use to test all sorts of vulnerabilities and see how the backend reacts. Also, in-depth analysis are very important over assumptions. I made assumption that it's system rancher agent, a rancher system agent that is connecting back to me. And this is why I lost maybe a week of time when doing this research. And you should also document everything. You can go back to those documents and see what you have done, what is wrong, have I done this before already, and so on. And of course, if you make a presentation, you can refer to those documents and make the presentation better, and also report that vulnerability better and say that at this point I did this kind of stuff. And you can also maybe send those documents to the as an attachment for the bug bounty report. And one extremely important thing to note for every company is the role of external security researchers. For example, there's a lot of security researchers, security-related people in Finland, but many companies are not using those researchers. They are happily hacking your services away and reporting vulnerabilities to you, but you have to also respect them. The communication between triager and the hacker is very important. If there wouldn't be any communication between, for example, in this case, I would have reported the original vulnerability. The bearer tokens were discovered from the domains and other HTTP basic authentication and such. I would probably gotten some $500 bounty. But the company asked me to escalate and see where I can go from here. So that communication was the key, and it revealed also other vulnerabilities for this company, which they have fixed now. And they got way more from this than they would have gotten from the $500 bounty. They would just fix the DNS and move on. And good programs interact with hackers. They discuss, they ask more things, and it is also very important that the bug bounty programs have people in triaging them, triage people who do bug bounties themselves. They then understand how the bug bounties work, what is annoying in their respective perspective. So, and also, of course, when some triage guy says, okay, not applicable, no, we are not going to pay from this, and you pay low bounties from some vulnerabilities or don't understand what the vulnerability is, even though the researcher tries to explain it. You should. It's very annoying from the hacker's perspective if someone doesn't understand what kind of point you are trying to make. So it helps to discuss with the hackers. It benefits both hackers and the companies. And it helps both the program to grow and the hacker to grow. But and of course, everyone needs to understand that not every hacker is reliable or doing the good thing. There is also the bad things with bug bounties, like beg bounties, which are saying that I need money, please give me money, just without any other proof than that you have a robots.txt accessible from the internet. So, what we learn from this, that expired domains can be dangerous. Even though that was just a domain and someone could have set up their own server there, it could be used in phishing campaigns, for example, but these kind of domains exist, usually in forgotten development environments, and they are usually pointing to some old services. Some services are connecting, and then this kind of vulnerability can happen. Rapid response is essential for programs, and of course, logging is important, relates to this very much. You have to see your logs to react and get alerts from those servers. And of course, the network segregation is important. Even though that someone can access your development environment, it should be completely separated from the production environment. So in case there's some stuff going on in the development environment and someone is running nmap scans and so on, it can access to the production environment. And of course, if the software would have been updated, maybe this would not happen. And every presentation must have at least one joke. So sorry for the English-speaking, non-Finnish people. Here's a little bit a word game. And my wife said that you can't put that joke there. So here it is. Thank you.